This next segment of the video manual focuses on the construction of the Aquabotz power cable system. In this, you will construct the battery pack assembly, the fish camera cable, and the Aquabotz own power cable. First, we will construct the Aquabotz battery pack. For the entirety of this chapter, however, you will need a black mesh backpack with 2 water bottle pockets on either side, 74 inches of paired speaker wire, a separate 10-foot length of speaker wire, a 6-foot indoor cord with a 2-prong polarized plug, a non-polarized 2-prong plug, a fish camera power adapter, 2 polarized female plugs, 2 blue female disconnects, 1/4-inch shrink tubing, black electrical tape, red electrical tape, a Phillips head screwdriver, wire strippers, a pair of wire cutters independent of the wire strippers, so not the wire cutters, a part of this yellow multi-tool, a heat gun, a crimping tool, a pair of scissors, and a ruler or measuring tape. Now the final product will look rather simple. Here we have the battery pack, with a polarized female plug resting within each of the pack's side pockets. These 2 plugs are each in turn paired within the front pocket of the battery pack. From here, a single pair of speaker wire runs directly to the Aquabotz battery source. Notice here where the wires connect to the battery that they are marked by red and black electrical tape. This red mark denotes the wire as the positive line, and this black mark denotes the wire as the negative line. Since this chapter of the manual covers construction of all power-related wiring, it is important that all wiring procedures maintain a uniform standard through which they are connected. As such, all marked wires will be connected to the positive red lines. In this, all red, striped, silver, and marked wires are positive. Thus, all black, blank, copper-colored, and unmarked wires are thereby negative. This will mostly come into play when the wires are connected to the different plugs. For now, however, we will begin by prepping the backpacks. To start, take a pair of wire cutters, such as the kind shown here, and cut your 74-inch length of speaker wire into 3 parts. The first cut should be exactly 6 inches long. For this, use your ruler or measuring tape. Now, setting this length of wire aside for later, cut the remaining 68-inch length of wire in half. You should now have 3 lengths of wire, one that is 6 inches long, and 2 that are each roughly 34 inches long. We will now connect the 2 female plugs to these 2 34-inch lengths of speaker wire. Taking one of the 2 wire lengths, split one end down the middle for a few inches with your wire cutters and strip both wires of 1 inch of their lining. Then, take one of the 2 female plugs and use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 2 screws, keeping the yellow plate against the plastic housing. Once you have removed both screws, put them aside and remove the internal hardware from within the plastic housing. Take a moment to now examine these plastic and metal components. Notice that there are 2 screws, each a different color. One should be roughly the color of brass, the other the color of silver. If using speaker wire that has a silver-colored line, notice how nicely these colors align. To keep a pattern of uniformity, all marked, so striped or silver wires, will be connected to the silver screws in the plugs, and all unmarked, so blank or copper-colored wires, will be connected to the brass-colored screws. So, using your screwdriver to loosen both screws, first connect the marked wire to the silver screw. Folding the wire from inside the cut in the metal face, wrap the wire around the silver screw, starting from the top in a clockwise motion. Then, hold the wire in place with one hand and tighten the screw back against the metal. By folding the wire in a clockwise motion, the tightening of the screw will serve to further secure the wire. Next, connect the unmarked wire to the brass-colored screw in the same manner. Bend the wire around the cut in the metal, fold it around the screw's threads in a clockwise motion, so in this case under the screw, and then hold the wires in place with one hand and tighten the brass screw back in place with your Phillips head screwdriver. Once you've made sure the wires are tightly fastened to the plug, Slide the plastic housing onto the other side of the wire and fit the yellow plate back in place. Finally, use your screwdriver to tighten the 2 screws back into the plug. This plug is now ready to be mounted into the battery pack. Repeat this same process for the other 34-inch length speaker wire and plastic female plug. Once you have 2 identical female plug cables, continue as I demonstrate how to construct the battery pack assembly. To construct the battery pack, first cut 4 access points into the backpack using a pair of wire cutters that are independent of any other tool type. The first access point will be cut from inside one of the water bottle pockets into the backpack's main pocket. To do this, slide one hand into the water bottle pocket, and use your middle finger to locate the front corner where the pouch is sewn to the backpack. Now, having located the corner with your finger, use your wire cutters, inside the main pocket of the backpack here, to open 4 adjacent holes in the mesh that make a square near the corner. Be careful to avoid pinching yourself in the process, and once you are done, keep your finger lodged in this exposed hole so as not to lose its place, and put your wire cutters aside. Then taking one of the 2 plugs which you just completed, snake the rear end of its line into the water bottle holder and pull it through the first access hole. The plug should now freely rest within the water bottle pocket. The other end of its line should now be in the main pocket of the backpack. Next, cut the second access point in the same manner, leading from within the main pocket into the corner of the front pocket. Using one finger to locate a suitable place to cut the access point within the main pocket, cut the hole in the corner of the front pocket. Then keeping a finger in the second access point, thread the end of the cable from within the main pocket through the second access point and into the front pocket of the battery pack. Repeat this same process for the other 34-inch cable with a female plug. Cut 2 more access points in this exact same manner as shown for the second water bottle pocket and other end of the battery pack's front pocket. Once you've completed all 4 access points and have thread both 34-inch cables through the backpack and into the front pocket, take a hold of the 6-inch length of speaker wire which was cut and put aside at the beginning of the segment. This 6-inch length will first be connected to both of the 34-inch cables and then prepped for connection to the battery source. To do this, first split both 34-inch cables down the middle a short way and expose a little more than an inch of each wire of its lining. Once you have done this, twist together the 2 marked wires, so either gray or striped wires, and then twist together the 2 unmarked wires. Be sure to maintain the same discipline in this step that was specified for connecting 2 wires in this manner in the previous chapter. Be sure to create the cross between the 2 wires and twist them together tightly, only this time do not fold the wires down. Once each has been done in this manner, there should be 2 wire ends now, a marked positive pair and an unmarked negative pair. Taking the 6-inch length of speaker wire, split one end down the middle no more than 3 inches, and expose each end of roughly little more than an inch of its lining. Taking the marked wire, connect it to the marked pair of 34-inch cable wires. Now fold these 3 wires down against the 6-inch length and use a roll of black electrical tape to wrap the connection. Start the wrapping on one end of the connection and cover the entirety of the exposed wire in a single and tight wrapping. Do not continue wrapping onto the 6-inch length any farther than is needed, since there is very little room to work with. Once complete, use the black electrical tape to wrap these 2 individual connections into a single sheath. When wrapping the tape onto the 6-inch length of wire, continue wrapping until only 3 to 2.5 inches of wire is left exposed. No matter what, the wrapping should continue up the 6-inch length past where the first end was split. Once you've completed the wrap, use your wire cutters to split the other end of the 6-inch length up to the edge of the electrical tape wrapping. Then, using a pair of wire strippers, expose both wire ends of a little more than 1/4 of an inch of their lining. Once each of the wires has been tightened and no strays are sticking out, take one of the 2 female disconnects and slide it onto one of the 2 ends. Holding it in place and being sure that the wire has come through the passage unobstructed as pictured here, use the blue section of your crimping tool to secure the disconnect to the wire. To ensure the disconnect is firmly secured to the wire, I have done this twice rather than once. Now, place the second disconnect onto the second wire. Hold it in place, being sure that the wire has passed through, and use your crimping tool to secure it to the wire. Once this is done, wrap a very short length of black electrical tape around the unmarked wire, and another very short length of red electrical tape around your marked wire. After you've made sure that the different colored electrical tape is on the correct wires, all that remains is to construct the remaining 2 power cables. With the battery pack complete, there are 2 power cables left to construct. One leads to the fish camera, and the other connects to the bot. Leaving the Aquabotz power cable for the very end, take a hold of the 6-foot power cord and unravel it to begin the fish cam power cable. Taking your wire cutters, remove the female end of the cord from the rest of the wiring. Leave at most 2 or 3 inches and no more than that. Then, use the wire cutters to split the rest of the cord's wire down its middle for a few inches and strip both wires on the 16 gauge of your wire strippers of 1 inch of their linings. Next, take a hold of the fish camera power adapter and just like the power cord, split the red and black wires apart and strip both ends of 1 inch of their lining using the 16 gauge section of your wire strippers. Once you've done this, set the power cord and adapter aside and take a hold of your 1/4 inch shrink tubing. With your scissors, cut 2 shrink tubing lengths, each between 1 inch and 1.5 inches long. Then slide the first short length of shrink tubing onto the red wire of the fish cam power adapter. Next, take a moment to examine the 6-foot power cord. Without a marked or unmarked wire, it's difficult to identify which wire is the positive one. Well, if you look at the male end of the cord, the wire on the side leading to the slightly larger pin, or prong, is the positive wire. You can tell whether or not a plug is polarized based on the size of the prongs. If both prongs are the same size, then the plug is non-polarized. Because this plug has different sized prongs then, we know that this plug is polarized, and it is from the larger prong that the positive wire leads. So, carefully following the positive wire for all 6 feet of this power cord, once you reach the end where your wire is exposed, connect it to the red wire of the fish cam power adapter, making sure that the shrink tubing is still on the wire. Then once you've tightened the wires and folded them against the power cord, slide the shrink tubing over the connection so that no exposed wire is visible, and use a heat gun to shrink the tubing to the wires. This shrink tubing is used to keep the wire connections secure in the event that the wires undergo a significant amount of pulling for any number of reasons. In any case, be sure to apply the heat close and directly to the entirety of the shrink tubing, and not in any one place for too long of a time. This tool is both loud and very hot, so take care when using it. Once the tubing is shrunk against the wires it protects, put the heat gun aside and give the tubing a moment to cool down. When it is again close to room temperature, take your black electrical tape and wrap the connection, being sure to cover the entirety of the shrink tubing. Once you finish wrapping the positive wires, make the same connection for the negative wires, the black and blank wires. Do not forget to use the other small length of shrink tubing. After both connections have been made and wrapped, take your electrical tape and wrap the 2 of them together. Make sure that the wrap job is tight and without any gaps or openings. Once you've finished wrapping the power cord to the power adapter, put the fish cam power cable aside. With the battery pack and the first power cable complete, only one power cable remains. To finish this segment, we will finally construct the Aquabotz power cable. First, take the 10-foot length of speaker wire mentioned at the beginning of the video and split one end down the middle with your wire cutters. Then use your wire strippers to strip both wires of just over an inch of their linings each. As much as 1.5 inches may be necessary for connection to this plug. Now once both wires are exposed and you have twisted any loose strands together, take the non-polarized 2-prong plug and use your Phillips head screwdriver to remove its 2 screws. Then, pulling up on the prongs to remove the plastic housing, examine the metal hardware attached to the yellow plastic. Like the other 2 polarized plugs in the battery pack, this plug also has 1 silver screw and 1 brass-colored screw. It is to the silver screw that the marked wire will be attached and to the brass-colored one that the unmarked wire will be attached to. So, taking your Phillips head screwdriver, loosen both of these 2 screws, but do not remove them. Leave 1 or 2 threads on the inside of the metal, but no less. Now, taking the marked wire, partially coil its length into the shape of a question mark. Once it looks like this, and still no wires are sticking out, thread the marked wire between the bottom of the silver screw and the yellow plastic. If you have difficulty in doing so, try loosening the screw a little more. There is a small gap between the screw, plastic, and metal prong where the wire should manage to slide through. Once you have the wire through, coil the wire around the screw in a counterclockwise motion, yes, counterclockwise motion, and then loop the back end of the wire over the small gap in the top of the metal prong's rear. Then, hold the wire in place so that it does not unravel and use your screwdriver to tighten the screw and wire back against the metal prong. Repeat this same procedure for the unmarked wire and the other mounting screw. Note that you will have to flip the plug over since the other prong is mounted upside down. Once both of the wires are secured to the plug, slide the plastic housing back over the other end of the 10-foot length and reconnect it to the rest of the plug using the 2 screws and your Phillips head screwdriver. The final step for this chapter is to now prepare the power cable for wiring to the controller. Split the end of the 10-foot length and strip both wire ends of 1 inch of their lining. Now, continue on to the final chapter to complete the Aquabotz construction, beginning with the installment of the power cable.